Jungkook's heart shatters when he sees Taehyung holding Jimin's hand backstage, an unseen moment of betrayal that changes everything. "Don't let go," Jimin whispered, barely audible above the roar of the crowd, as Taehyung's fingers wrapped tightly around his. Jungkook froze. He wasn't supposed to be there. The rehearsal had ended hours ago, and the others were long gone, or so he thought. The corridor behind the stage was dimly lit, humming faintly with leftover energy from the earlier concert. The scent of sweat, fog machines, and faint cologne still lingered in the air, clinging to the black curtains like ghosts. He had only returned to grab the earpiece he'd forgotten in his dressing room. Nothing more. But then he heard it, the whisper. He turned the corner silently, and there they were. Jimin stood close to Taehyung, so close their breaths seemed to mingle. Taehyung's eyes were lowered, his jaw clenched in a way Jungkook recognized all too well, a mix of fear and longing. And Jimin. Jimin looked vulnerable in a way Jungkook hadn't seen since their trainee days, when they used to sit on the rooftop and wonder if they'd ever debut. Their hands were joined, not casually, not in passing. It was the kind of grip reserved for the moments between words, between confessions, between the things that hurt too much to say aloud. Jungkook couldn't breathe. A strange pressure built in his chest, like the air had suddenly turned too heavy to hold. He took one step back, then another, but the sound of his retreat was too soft. They didn't notice him. Or maybe they did. Maybe that was the point. He fled. The hallways blurred as he rushed past them. Each poster on the wall now felt like a lie. 7 faces smiling, united, perfect. But Jungkook no longer believed in that picture. Not after what he saw. He locked himself in his dressing room. The silence there was oppressive. He collapsed onto the couch, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. His breathing grew erratic, and he couldn't tell whether the warmth sliding down his cheek was sweat or tears. Why did it hurt so much? It wasn't jealousy, not in the obvious sense. He wasn't even sure what he was feeling. Betrayal? Loss? Something deeper, older, like watching a door close slowly on something you never dared to name. He had always known there was something unspoken between the three of them, a triangle of glances and silences, of rehearsed closeness and real distance. But he had never expected to be on the outside of it. The knock came 20 minutes later. Jungkook. Taehyung's voice was quiet, cautious. "You forgot your in-ears." Jungkook didn't answer. "I saw you," Taehyung said after a pause. "You saw us." The doorknob didn't move. Taehyung didn't try to come in. Maybe he knew better. "We didn't mean to hurt you." Liar. Jungkook stared at the door as if it could break under the weight of everything unsaid. He wanted to scream, to throw something, to forget the way Jimin had looked at Taehyung. But most of all, he wanted to understand. Why now? Why in secret? He waited until Taehyung's footsteps faded away, then slid to the floor, back against the cold metal of the door. The dressing room light buzzed softly above him. It flickered once, then steadied. Everything was shifting. Everything he thought he knew about their bond, about them, was unraveling. And in the center of it stood 2 people whose hands had found each other when no one else was watching. Jungkook clenched his fists. He wasn't ready to lose them both. Not like this. Not without a fight. "You think I didn't see the way you looked at him?" Jungkook's voice echoed through the empty rehearsal studio like a sharp crack in frozen glass. His fists were clenched at his sides, chest rising and falling with short, unsteady breaths. Across the room, Taehyung stood still, his posture rigid but his eyes unreadable. They were alone now. The staff had left after the long video shoot, and the rest of the members had scattered, some to the van, some to the lounge. But Jungkook had waited. He had followed Taehyung silently, his heart pounding with every step. Taehyung didn't answer immediately. His gaze drifted toward the wall of mirrors, where their reflections stood like ghosts of another version of themselves, calm, composed, not torn apart by something as simple and as cruel as love. "Maybe I did look at him," Taehyung said finally, voice low. "But not the way you think." Jungkook scoffed. "Then explain it to me. Because what I saw backstage, that wasn't nothing. That wasn't a mistake." Taehyung's jaw tightened. It wasn't. The admission hit Jungkook like a punch to the gut. He turned away for a second, running a hand through his sweat-damp hair, trying to gather anything that made sense. "You've been hiding this," he muttered, more to himself. "For how long, Taehyung? How long has this been happening behind our backs?" Taehyung stepped forward, just once. His voice stayed steady, but there was tension in the way his fingers twitched at his side. "Since the tour in Paris." Jungkook turned sharply. "That was 8 months ago." Taehyung nodded. 8 months. 8 months of secrets, shared glances, lingering touches when the cameras weren't watching. 8 months of pretending. Jungkook could barely believe it, but suddenly so many things clicked into place. The way Jimin laughed a little too softly around Taehyung, the private rehearsals, the moments when they disappeared and came back a little too synchronized. "And you didn't think I deserved to know?" Jungkook's voice cracked. "You didn't think we deserved to know? After everything we've been through. It wasn't about you." "Bullshit," Jungkook snapped. "You think you can say that and walk away clean? This isn't some casual hookup, Taehyung. This is us. This is the group, the trust we've built. And you threw it away because what? You couldn't keep your hands to yourself?" Taehyung's expression hardened, his eyes suddenly dark. "Don't talk to me like I'm some reckless child. You don't know what this has been like. You don't know what it's cost me." "Then tell me," Jungkook growled. "Tell me what's been so hard about sneaking around with the one person I thought would never lie to me." Taehyung stepped closer. "You think Jimin's innocent in all this? That he didn't break too, every time we had to walk past each other like strangers? We didn't want to lie. But we were scared. Of what it would do to you. To the group. Don't pretend this was about protecting me," Jungkook spat. "If you cared about protecting anyone, you would have stopped before it started." A heavy silence settled between them. The kind that weighed down every breath. The room felt colder now, like the lights had dimmed without anyone touching the switch. Finally, Taehyung looked away. "I loved him." Jungkook blinked. "I still do," Taehyung continued. "And maybe that makes me selfish. Maybe that makes me a traitor to everything we've built. But I loved him, and I couldn't pretend I didn't." The confession was like a slap. Jungkook staggered back a step, not physically, but emotionally, completely unmoored. His voice dropped, suddenly fragile. "And what about me?" Taehyung's head snapped up. "What?" Jungkook's hands trembled now, open and vulnerable. "What about me, Taehyung? Did you ever stop to think what it would feel like for me to see you choose him?" Taehyung stared at him for a long time. And in that silence, Jungkook felt everything unravel. The silence was broken not by Taehyung, but by the quiet creak of the door. Both of them turned at once. Jimin stood in the doorway. His face was pale, his lips parted slightly as if caught mid-breath. He hadn't meant to walk in. That much was clear. But he didn't move. Taehyung stepped forward, eyes wide. "Jimin." "I heard everything," Jimin said, voice soft but unwavering. "I was looking for Jungkook. I didn't know you two were." Jungkook stared at him like he'd never seen him before. Jimin, with his carefully composed smiles and gentle eyes. Jimin, who had always been the peacekeeper, the glue, the one who smoothed the cracks before anyone noticed them. But this time, he was the crack. "I can't do this," Jungkook whispered. Jimin blinked. "Kook." "No," Jungkook shook his head. "You don't get to call me that right now." His voice broke again, but this time it was quieter. Resigned. "I thought you were my safe place." The words cut deeper than any accusation. Jimin took a step forward instinctively, but Jungkook recoiled. "Don't." "I never wanted to hurt you," Jimin said, the tears already welling in his eyes. "It wasn't supposed to go this far. But I couldn't stop. Not when it started to feel like I was finally breathing." Jungkook laughed bitterly, a sound with no joy. "Funny. That's exactly when I started drowning." No one spoke for a long moment. The silence between them was deafening, a chasm that none of them dared cross. Finally, Jungkook turned to the mirror, looking at his reflection, at the sweat-slicked curls on his forehead, the redness around his eyes, the way his own pain had sculpted him into something unfamiliar. "This will destroy us," he said, voice flat. "Not if we hold on," Jimin whispered, voice breaking. Jungkook met his gaze through the mirror. "But you already let go." He left the room without looking back. And for the first time in years, the sound of a closing door felt like something ending, not just a moment, not just a friendship, but a version of them that might never return. Backstage, the world carried on. The stylists laughed over makeup palettes, the staff loaded equipment into trucks, the stage crew prepped for tomorrow. To them, the show was over. Another successful night. But in that quiet room, amidst the shattered reflections and words that couldn't be unsaid, the real performance had only just begun. The silence didn't end with the door. It lingered. For days. In the studio, in the van, even during dance practice, where sweat usually blurred everything but rhythm, where the beat pulsed louder than thoughts, there was now a stillness between movements, like invisible fault lines had begun to snake their way through the group. Jungkook barely spoke. Not in meetings. Not in rehearsals. Not even when Namjoon quietly asked if he was okay during a break in recording. The younger singer only offered a faint nod, a vague grunt, then returned to scribbling lyrics in his notebook, though the pages remained blank. The others noticed. Hoseok paced longer than usual before choreo started. Yoongi, who usually didn't pry, now watched Jungkook more often than he spoke. Jean stopped cracking jokes in the green room. Even the stylists hesitated before touching Jungkook's face, unsure if he'd flinch or freeze. But TAEHYUNG and Jimin, they barely made eye contact. And when they did, just once, in the mirror of the vocal booth, Jimin looked away first. On the fourth day, everything finally cracked. It happened during vocal rehearsals for the comeback showcase. The room was hot, crowded with equipment, tension, and nerves. The track looped endlessly as the vocal director shouted instructions. Jimin stood at the center mic, adjusting his earpiece, while Jungkook leaned against the wall, arms crossed. TAEHYUNG entered late, his hat pulled low, his voice hoarse from a sleepless night. When the beat dropped, Jimin missed his cue. The director clapped sharply. Again. They started over. Jimin stumbled again. This time his voice cracked. Again. The third take collapsed when Jungkook muttered just loud enough. Maybe he should get some rest, preferably somewhere private. The silence was instant. Jimin's eyes locked onto his. Say that again. Jungkook pushed off the wall, walked slowly toward him. I said maybe you're too tired to sing straight. Or too distracted. Want to tell everyone why. Don't do this here. No? Why not? Scared they'll finally hear what you've been whispering to him in the dark. Jimin stepped forward. You think this is funny? You think this is some game? Was it love or just convenience? Jungkook snapped. Because I can't tell anymore. Before Jimin could respond, the director raised his hands. Okay, stop. Everyone out. Now. But neither of them moved. Jungkook looked like a storm, barely holding. Jimin's lips trembled, but his eyes were steel. I was scared, Jimin said suddenly. Thought if I told you, I'd lose you. That's the truth. You lost me anyway. TAEHYUNG stepped between them, hands raised, voice soft. Enough. Both of you. Don't act like you're neutral, Jungkook growled. You picked your side 8 months ago. TAEHYUNG's jaw tensed. I didn't pick a side. I fell in love. With him. With who he is, not who I was told to love. You're both so goddamn selfish. The door slammed shut behind Jungkook as he left, but his words didn't leave with him. Jimin sat down slowly, as if the weight of it all had finally hit. He thinks we betrayed him. TAEHYUNG turned to him. Did we? I don't know anymore. Later that night, Jungkook returned to the dorm, only to find it half dark. Jeon had left a plate of food on the table untouched. The others were scattered across rooms. The hallway light flickered as he passed. He went straight to his room and locked the door. But sleep didn't come. Instead, he sat on the floor beside his bed, scrolling through old videos on his phone, memories of the 7 of them laughing on tour buses, sneaking snacks, falling asleep on each other's shoulders, sharing mics, harmonizing with breathless joy. And then a video he forgot he had. TAEHYUNG. Backstage. Laughing with Jimin. A soft laugh, real, unfiltered. They didn't know he was filming. TAEHYUNG reached out, brushing something off Jimin's cheek. The moment lasted just seconds, but it felt intimate. Too intimate. Jungkook deleted the video. The next morning, he requested to move dorm rooms. Namjoon called a meeting. In the main practice room, the 6 of them sat in a circle: Yoongi, Jin, Hoseok, Namjoon, Jimin, TAEHYUNG. Jungkook stood apart. Namjoon spoke first. "We can't function like this." Silence. Yoongi exhaled. "Jungkook, what do you need from them?" Jungkook laughed once, bitterly. "Honesty would have been a good start." Hoseok, unusually serious, leaned forward. "You can't unfeel what you feel. But you also can't pretend like your pain gives you the right to burn everything down." Jungkook's voice cracked. "I'm not trying to burn anything. I'm trying to understand how 2 people I trusted with everything decided I didn't matter." Jimin's eyes glistened. "You matter. You always did. You still do. Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was ashamed," Jimin admitted. "Not of him. Of myself. Of being happy in a way that felt forbidden. I didn't want to lose you. I didn't want to lose us." Jungkook turned to TAEHYUNG. "And you?" TAEHYUNG's voice was quiet. "I thought, if I kept it secret, maybe I could have both. I was wrong." Namjoon stood. "Everyone has to choose. Either we fix this together, or we fracture forever." The room fell into thick, uneasy quiet. No one answered. That night, an anonymous account posted a blurry photo: TAEHYUNG and Jimin, sitting shoulder to shoulder at an airport in Japan. The post went viral in minutes. Comments exploded. Fans speculated. Hashtags trended. And the silence that had grown inside the group was now outside too. In every comment section. In every headline. Jungkook stared at the photo for a long time before switching his phone off. Then, for the first time in a week, he wrote something in his notebook. Not a lyric. Not a verse. Just one sentence. "What if the real betrayal isn't falling in love, but pretending you didn't?" He stared at the words until they blurred. Because for the first time, he began to wonder. What if he was never angry that TAEHYUNG loved Jimin, but that Jimin had never loved him back? "You lied to me every single day." Jungkook's voice was sharp as steel, but beneath it, a tremor of something far more human. It wasn't shouted. It didn't need to be. The words landed like a cold slap in a quiet room. He didn't look up from the page in his notebook, but Jimin, standing in the doorway of the recording booth, flinched anyway. No cameras. No staff. Just them, 2 members of the biggest band in the world, standing on opposite sides of a soundproofed room, where the only thing louder than words was silence. "I didn't lie," Jimin said quietly, stepping inside. "I just didn't tell you." Jungkook closed the notebook and stood. "Don't play that card. It's the same thing." Jimin looked tired. His usually soft expression was pulled tight, lips pale, eyes raw like he hadn't slept properly in days. "I couldn't tell you," he said again. "Because I knew it would destroy you." Jungkook laughed, short and bitter. "You think not telling me didn't? You were already pulling away." That stopped him. "What?" Jimin took a slow step forward. "You were. Even before TAEHYUNG and I, before anything happened. You were there, but not really. Your body was in the room, but your heart was always somewhere else. Buried under pressure. Training. Perfection. You forgot how to feel, Jungkook. And I waited. For months. Hoping you'd look at me like you used to." Jungkook's fists clenched, his voice cold. "So this was revenge?" "No," Jimin said. "It was survival. You had me." Jungkook's voice cracked, not just from rage but heartbreak. "You had me. I was right here. Were you?" And, just like that, silence swallowed the space again. Neither moved. Their breaths were heavy. The only sound between them was the low hum of equipment, machines built to record truth, now bearing witness to the most human kind of lie. Jungkook turned away first. "You say I pulled away, but you never reached for me." Jimin's voice was quieter now. "I didn't know how. You reached for him. Because he saw me. That, more than anything, shattered what was left." "You know what the worst part is?" Jungkook said after a long beat. "I could have forgiven you. If you'd just told me from the beginning. If you had just sat me down like a brother and trusted me with the truth." Jimin's eyes glistened. "Would you have really forgiven me?" Jungkook didn't answer. Because the truth was he didn't know. Later that day, the group gathered again for the final rehearsal before their comeback stage. The energy was tense, not from nerves, but from everything unspoken. The choreography was tight, rehearsed to perfection. But there was no heat, no fire in their steps. Only precision, cold, mechanical, almost robotic. When the music cut, their choreographer shook his head. It's technically correct, but emotionally dead. You look like 7 strangers. No one responded. As the others took water breaks, Jungkook remained still. TAEHYUNG approached, towel around his neck, sweat trickling down his temple. Can we talk? He asked. Jungkook didn't move. Are you going to lie to? TAEHYUNG didn't flinch. I won't lie. But I won't apologize either. Jungkook stood. You should. TAEHYUNG's voice was firm. I won't. Because I didn't take anything from you. I found something with him. Something real. You don't get to dictate who people love. I'm not angry you fell in love, Jungkook growled. I'm angry you did it behind my back. Lied to my face. Let me believe we were still us. We are still us. No, Jungkook said, stepping forward. We're not. TAEHYUNG's voice lowered. You think you're the only one who's hurting? I didn't just wake up one day and decide to risk everything for Jimin. I fought it. Every step. Every touch. Every time I wanted to hold his hand and didn't. You think that was easy? Jungkook said nothing. I'm sorry you're hurt. Truly. But I'm not sorry I love him. The confession landed like a knife. Before Jungkook could speak, staff called for them to line up. They performed. Lights blazed. Fans screamed. Cameras flashed. And yet, underneath the beat, behind the practiced expressions, was a deep, raw fracture. That night, Namjoon called for a private dorm meeting. No staff. No managers. Just the 7 of them. I'm going to be blunt, he said. We're not okay. And if we go on pretending, we're going to implode. Maybe not today, but soon. And publicly. Everyone was silent. We've survived military service, burnout, rumors, hiatuses, but this, he looked around. This is the first time I feel like we don't trust each other. Jean spoke up. We need rules. Boundaries. If personal relationships are getting in the way, then maybe we take space. Hoseok nodded. We can't sacrifice the music. Not for anything. Not even love. Jimin finally spoke. So what? Are you saying TAEHYUNG and I have to stop? No, Namjoon said. We're saying something has to change. Or there won't be a group left to protect. Jungkook stood slowly. Then I'll go. Everyone turned to him. Jimin's eyes widened. What? Jungkook's voice was steady but hollow. If my being here is what's breaking us, then I'll step away. You don't mean that, TAEHYUNG said. I do, Jungkook replied. I'd rather leave than stay and feel like a ghost. Yoongi leaned forward, voice calm. You're not a ghost. You're just in pain. And it's not getting better, Jungkook snapped. Every time I see you two together, even if it's just standing in the same room, I feel like I'm being erased. Jimin looked like he was about to cry. You're not being erased. But I am, Jungkook said, and this time, his voice was small. Not by you. But by the version of you I thought I knew. No one spoke for a long time. The meeting ended without resolution. That night, as the dorm fell into a heavy sleep, Jungkook stood on the rooftop. The city buzzed below, neon and indifferent. TAEHYUNG joined him quietly. They stood shoulder to shoulder, not speaking. Until Jungkook broke the silence. Do you love him more than you ever loved me? TAEHYUNG didn't answer right away. I didn't know I loved you. Jungkook turned to him. But you did. I think a part of me always did. But it was never spoken. Never real. Just moments. Jungkook's eyes burned. Then why does it hurt like hell? TAEHYUNG looked away. Because we never gave it a chance. They stood in silence, both of them staring at what could have been, at what was never said out loud. And for the first time since it all began, Jungkook let himself cry, not out of anger, but grief. Not for the loss of Jimin, but for the love he never allowed himself to name. The love that could have been his. If only they had been brave enough to speak it. You think this is over? Jungkook's voice was low but piercing, like a sharp note struck clean on a silent piano. TAEHYUNG stood at the other end of the dressing room, hair still wet from the performance, stage lights fading from his skin. His shirt clung to his chest, and his eyes, tired, defiant, didn't flinch. I think it has to be, TAEHYUNG answered, barely audible. Before it destroys more than it already has. Jungkook laughed once, the kind of sound that held no humor, only heartbreak. You're not even trying anymore. That's the part that kills me. I did try. I tried to hold on to you, to him, to us, and none of it held. What else am I supposed to do? Rip myself into pieces just so you don't feel abandoned? Don't turn this into my abandonment issue, Jungkook shot back, taking a step forward. You were the one who walked away. You were the one who chose silence. Every night I waited for you to just say one true thing, and all I got was your back turned or your hand in his. Taehyung's mouth tightened. You wanted the truth? Fine. I loved him before I even understood what it meant. And I stayed away because I knew what it would cost me. You. Our friendship. My own fucking sanity. I tried to push it down. I tried to forget. But every time he smiled at me, it felt like breathing again. And you, Jungkook, you were there, but you were untouchable. Perfect. Distant. Always half in your head. And I waited for you to notice me. But you only saw me when I started slipping away. Jungkook's eyes were red now. Not from exhaustion, but from the flood barely being held back. I saw everything, TAEHYUNG. But I told myself it was just my imagination. I thought maybe if I didn't say it, if I didn't name it, it wouldn't be real. Because I was scared. Because I thought, maybe if I held on just a little longer, you'd find your way back to me. A beat. A silence. Then a whisper. You never even turned around. The door opened behind them. Jimin stood in the frame, his face unreadable. I'm sorry. His voice was quiet but clear. For everything. I don't even know where to start. TAEHYUNG glanced at him, something like guilt flickering across his features. Jungkook didn't move. Jimin stepped inside, closing the door behind him. I lied to myself first. About what I felt, about what I wanted. And I kept lying until I didn't know how to stop. I thought I was protecting you, Jungkook. But maybe I was just protecting myself from having to face how much damage love could really do. You weren't protecting anything, Jungkook snapped, voice cracking. You were hiding. There's a difference. Jimin nodded slowly. You're right. TAEHYUNG moved toward Jimin now, standing beside him. Jungkook noticed it, the instinctive way their shoulders aligned, like magnets that had found their natural pull. It made his stomach twist. So this is it? Jungkook asked, voice hollow. You're officially together? Jimin looked at TAEHYUNG. Then at Jungkook. We don't even know what we are. We're still figuring it out. You figured it out enough to destroy everything else, Jungkook muttered. Stop, TAEHYUNG said suddenly. Stop punishing us for something that none of us asked for. Love isn't clean. It's not scheduled between rehearsals and comebacks. It doesn't wait until everyone's ready. You think I wanted to fall for him while standing beside you every day? You think that didn't fuck me up too? I think you didn't care enough to stop. TAEHYUNG's voice broke now. I couldn't stop. That's the truth. I tried. God, I tried. But every time he looked at me like I was enough, not a role, not an idol, not the image the world wanted, just me, I felt like I mattered. Like I was real again. And I didn't give you that? The question came out quieter than Jungkook meant it to. TAEHYUNG looked at him with something close to devastation. You gave me so much, Kook. But you never gave me you. Not fully. Not the parts that hurt. Not the parts that were scared. You only ever gave me what you thought I could handle. Jungkook turned away. Maybe because I knew if I gave it all, you'd leave anyway. And then the silence, thicker than before. Jimin sat down on the couch, voice strained. So, what do we do now? No one answered. The next day, the company called an emergency PR meeting. The leaked photo had taken a life of its own. Speculation was no longer whispers, it was headlines. News anchors debated it. Fans fought online. Trending hashtags became battlefields. Do we deny it? One of the execs asked, flipping through printed screenshots of TAEHYUNG and Jimin at the airport. We do damage control, the media rep said coldly. Either we sell it as brotherhood, or we let them go public and prepare for fallout. What about Jungkook? Someone asked. Everyone looked at him. Jungkook, seated at the corner of the long glass table, face unreadable. He looked up slowly. Do whatever you want. Just leave me out of it. Namjoon slammed his hand down. That's not a solution. Jungkook stood. Then maybe the solution is I step away. From this comeback. From the group. Temporarily. The room exploded in noise. The CEO stood. Absolutely not. That would confirm every rumor out there. It would destroy the concept. Jungkook looked him in the eye. Maybe the concept should have never been built on lies. And then he walked out. Jimin found him later on the roof again. Jungkook was sitting on the edge, legs dangling over Tokyo in neon. You shouldn't be up here alone, Jimin said. I've been alone for a while, Jungkook replied without looking. Jimin stepped closer. I think we broke something. Jungkook finally turned. No. You revealed something. Maybe it was always broken. Jimin sat beside him, carefully. Do you hate me? Jungkook exhaled. I want to. But I can't. That's the worst part. I still care about you. I know. I'll always care. But not the way I wanted. Jimin didn't respond. They sat in silence, two silhouettes in the Tokyo night, hearts filled with the ghosts of what might have been. And somewhere deep inside, Jungkook knew this wasn't the end. But it was the end of something. Something sacred. Something silent. Something they'd never be able to name. The storm hit 3 days after the photo leaked. Not a metaphorical one, though the emotional chaos in the dorm would have rivaled any typhoon, but a real, pounding monsoon that flooded the streets of Seoul and mirrored the state of the band's fractured dynamic. Headlines didn't stop. Theories snowballed. Jungkook's name trended beside Jimin's and Taehyung's under hashtags that grew more vicious by the hour. Hashtag Taekook fallout. Hashtag Jimin betrayed JK. Hashtag is BTS over? That last one hit hardest. Jungkook stared at his screen in silence as he read those words for the 100th time, his reflection a hollow thing in the black mirror. His manager had texted him twice already, asking him to lie low, to stay inside until the press cooled down. But nothing was cooling. Everything was heating. Then came the twist no one saw coming. A new leak. Video footage this time. A backstage clip from 6 months earlier. Jimin and Taehyung, behind a curtain, whispering and laughing. Then, clearly and unmistakably, Taehyung taking Jimin's hand. Holding it. Not just affectionately, but intimately. Fingers intertwined. Their heads leaned together, foreheads brushing. No one was performing. No fan service. Just them. The timestamp at the bottom read, Busan Dome, Night 2. The video spread like wildfire. Fans zoomed in. Analyzed facial expressions. Dug through past concerts, comparing mic placements and outfits to find other moments that might have been hints. TikTok theorists made montages. YouTubers released 20-minute reaction breakdowns. But most damning of all was the realization that they'd been lying for months. Smiling through interviews. Dancing like nothing had changed. Posting group selfies while hiding earthquakes behind their eyes. Jungkook didn't show up to rehearsal that night. Taehyung did. When he walked into the studio, the room fell quiet. Not tense. Just expectant. As if everyone had been waiting for the moment he'd be forced to answer to more than just Jungkook. Namjoon looked up from his notes. You knew that footage existed? Taehyung shook his head. No. I didn't know anyone recorded it. Jeon leaned forward. So it's real. Taehyung's eyes didn't waver. Yes. The silence became thick. Almost suffocating. Do you love him? Yoongi asked plainly, not out of malice, but curiosity. Taehyung nodded. I do. And what about the group? Hoseok asked. Where does that love go when you're choosing secrets over us? Taehyung hesitated. Then, I never wanted this to become a war. I wanted it to stay sacred. But I guess the world doesn't let us have that anymore. Namjoon stood. The world didn't leak the video. Someone in our circle did. Jimin entered the room at that exact moment, drenched from the storm outside. His hoodie clung to him. His eyes were glassy and red. He looked at each of them. Then directly at Taehyung. I know who leaked it, he said quietly. The room tensed. Who? Namjoon asked. Jimin exhaled. It was our second camera up. The one who worked Busan. He messaged me anonymously. Said he sold it to a tabloid because he wanted money. Said he figured if people were already suspecting, he might as well cash in. No one said anything. Jean sat back. We're not idols anymore. We're characters. To everyone out there, we're a drama. A romance. A betrayal story. Jungkook entered. Wet from the rain, hair slicked back, eyes unreadable. He looked at each of them, then said, "We need to talk." All of us. The room shifted like tectonic plates. No one moved. But the air vibrated. "We're going to lose everything if we keep pretending," Jungkook continued, stepping forward. "We're not okay. And we haven't been for a long time. But the only thing worse than being broken is performing like we're not." TAEHYUNG met his gaze. "Then what do? We tell the truth," Jungkook said. Namjoon frowned. "To who?" "Everyone." Silence. "No," the manager said from the doorway, suddenly pale. "Absolutely not. You're under contract." "Public declarations would." Jungkook cut him off. "We built this group on sincerity. Remember? Speak yourself? That campaign we lived and breathed. This is speaking ourselves. The pain, the confusion, the humanity. We owe them more than silence." Jimin stepped forward, his voice quiet but certain. "I'm willing to say it. All of it. The feelings, the mistakes, even the guilt. I'm tired of hiding." TAEHYUNG nodded. "Me too." Namjoon looked torn, but after a long pause, he said, "Then we do it together." One by one, the rest of the group agreed. Later that week, Big Hit posted a surprise live stream announcement, a special BTS Truth Talk, no scripts, no managers, just us. The world held its breath. The stream began with all 7 members seated in a circle. No stage, no lights, just a living room, quiet and honest. Namjoon began. "This is not a press statement. This is not a spin. This is just 7 people telling you the truth. Because we believe you deserve it." Then, slowly, painfully, the story unfolded. TAEHYUNG spoke first. "I fell in love with someone I wasn't supposed to fall in love with. But I did. And I'm not ashamed of the feeling. I'm ashamed of the hiding." Jimin followed. "We didn't know how to be honest with ourselves, let alone with Jungkook. And that dishonesty cost us. I understand if fans are disappointed. I understand if you, Jungkook, can't forgive us." Then Jungkook. Voice low. Broken in places. "I loved Jimin too. But I didn't know how to say it without losing everything. So I said nothing. And in that silence, I lost more than I ever feared I would. I lost a version of myself that believed love was simple. That version's gone. But what remains is someone still trying to find peace." The rest of the stream blurred with truth after truth. About mental health. Pressure. Fear of irrelevance. The unbearable expectations. And at the end, Jungkook turned to the camera and said something no one expected. "We might not always be perfect. We might not even always be 7. But as long as we keep telling the truth, there's still something worth saving." Millions watched. Millions cried. Millions turned off their phones with heavy hearts. But many also understood. That night, in the dorm, the group sat together. No stylists. No schedules. Just them. Jimin spoke first. "Do you still hate me?" Jungkook looked at him. "No. But I'm still grieving what will never be." Jimin nodded. "So am I." TAEHYUNG, sitting between them, whispered, "Can we still be a we?" And after a long pause, Jungkook said, "Maybe not the same we. But maybe something new." No one had all the answers. But for the first time in months, they had the same question. And that was something. Something real. Something to begin again. The night after the live stream, Seoul didn't sleep. Cafes stayed open till dawn. People gathered in groups in front of screens replaying the confession. Fans cried in silence on sidewalks. Twitter, Weverse, every social media platform became a war zone. Support, anger, heartbreak, devotion, betrayal, all crashing into each other like waves during a hurricane. But inside the dorm, it was unnaturally quiet. Jungkook sat at the kitchen table, unmoving, his eyes fixed on the half-empty glass in front of him. His hoodie sleeves were tugged over his wrists, knuckles pale from gripping the edge of the table. The others had gone to sleep hours ago, or at least pretended to. The truth had been spoken, but the fallout hadn't finished. He didn't flinch when the chair across from him scraped against the floor. TAEHYUNG sat down slowly, dragging his fingers through his disheveled hair. His shirt hung loose, eyes bloodshot, and for once, there was no presence in him. No charm, no ethereal warmth. Just a man worn down by truth. Jungkook finally spoke. "You know what I thought about all day?" TAEHYUNG shook his head. That moment, Jungkook whispered, voice thin, in Busan, before the second encore. "You gave me your water bottle and I thought, he knows I forgot mine again. You even unscrewed the cap for me. You looked at me like I was your favorite person in the world." I remember. But 20 minutes before that, you were holding his hand backstage. Jungkook's voice didn't rise. It broke. "How many times did you love me publicly while giving him all of you privately?" TAEHYUNG winced like the words slapped him. "I didn't plan any of this. That's the problem." Jungkook leaned forward, eyes burning. "You were never brave enough to plan. You just felt, and let the rest of us carry the consequences. I was scared I'd lose both of you." "You did," Jungkook snapped. "You just didn't notice until it was too late." TAEHYUNG looked down. "Then let me ask you something. If I had chosen you, would you have said yes?" Jungkook didn't answer right away. "Don't lie," TAEHYUNG said. "Not tonight." Jungkook blinked slowly. "I would have ruined it." TAEHYUNG looked up confused. "You wanted something soft," Jungkook whispered. "I would have turned it into a war. I would have loved you like a drowning man clings to air, desperate, consuming, selfish. I never knew how to love you gently." "Maybe I didn't want gentle," TAEHYUNG said, voice raw. "Maybe I wanted real." "Then why didn't you wait for me to be ready?" "Because by the time you looked up," TAEHYUNG said, "he was already holding me." Silence. A different silence than before, this one like the pause between a last breath and the flat line. The next day, the company arranged a meeting to discuss upcoming schedules. "We've postponed Japan, Manila, and Jakarta," said the rep, flipping through documents. "The backlash is unpredictable. Half the sponsors are on hold. Samsung is considering freezing the campaign until Q4. We're not canceling the world tour," Namjoon said, firm. The CEO looked up. "Then you need a miracle between now and Tokyo." That night, a different kind of miracle happened, unexpected, not planned by any PR strategist or executive. During a fan's live stream, an old clip resurfaced, Jungkook singing The Truth Untold during soundcheck, but with Jimin watching him from side stage, eyes shining, lips mouthing every lyric. The moment wasn't dramatic. There were no confessions. No touches. Just a look. A look that screamed of something lost and something longed for. The clip went viral overnight. The comments were flooded with heartbreak. They never stood a chance. This is what grief in love looks like. You can't fake that kind of history. The mood online began to shift. Not forgiveness, but understanding. That night, Jimin knocked on Jungkook's door. Jungkook opened it without a word. Jimin stepped inside. The lights were dim. The air smelled like green tea and rain. "I miss being able to sit next to you without thinking," Jimin said. "You mean without guilt?" "No," Jimin replied softly. "Without calculation. Without wondering if you're waiting for me to apologize again." "Then stop wondering," Jungkook said. "I'm not." Jimin swallowed. "I'm sorry I didn't choose you. You didn't know me that. I owed you honesty." Jungkook nodded. "Yeah, you did." A pause. "Can I ask you something?" Jimin's voice barely rose above the hum of the AC. "Yeah. If I had come to you before TAEHYUNG, just once, and said, 'I think I'm falling for you,' would you have kissed me?" Jungkook looked at him, eyes steady but distant. "I would have kissed you like I was trying to stop time." Jimin closed his eyes, his breath catching. "But it wouldn't have saved us," Jungkook added. No, Jungkook said, softer now. "Because we didn't know who we were yet. And love that comes before knowing yourself? It always ends in smoke." Jimin sat beside him, and for the first time in weeks, they just existed. No confessions. No demands. Just space between them, filled with everything they'd never been brave enough to say before. Meanwhile, TAEHYUNG walked the streets alone. No manager. No security. A hoodie over his head. Headphones in. But no music playing. He walked past posters of himself. of the group, of the life he'd spent over a decade building, now shaking at the foundation because of something so simple and so complicated: love. He stopped at the Han River, sat on the bench where they used to eat late-night tteokbokki after training, and cried. For all three of them. The next morning, the group reconvened for dance practice. Their choreographer walked in with a new routine. Jungkook stood at the center, Jimin to his left, TAEHYUNG to his right. When the music started, something happened. They moved together. Not perfectly, not polished, but honestly. Raw. And in that rawness, there was something more beautiful than choreography. There was healing. Later that week, they filmed a documentary segment. Cameras rolling, uncut. A question was asked. Do you think you'll ever go back to how things were? Jungkook answered. No. But maybe that's not the goal. Maybe the goal isn't returning to the past, it's surviving it. Together. Jimin looked at him, eyes misted. TAEHYUNG reached over, took his hand. And this time, Jungkook didn't flinch. He didn't smile either. But he stayed. And sometimes, that's more powerful than forgiveness. It's love, without conditions. And maybe, that was what they were learning now. Not how to go back. But how to move forward wounded, yes. Changed, yes. But still together. Still seven. Still something. And that was enough. For now. The rain returned the next evening, not a storm, just a soft, unrelenting drizzle that soaked the city and muffled its usual noise. Inside the practice building, on the 4th floor where the mirrors knew all their secrets and the floors still echoed with every shouted count from over the years, the members of BTS were once again gathered. But not for rehearsal. Not for a shoot. This time, they were meeting behind a locked door, phones off, cameras banished. No stylists. No PR. Just them. Jungkook stood by the window, his hoodie sleeves tugged down to his knuckles. He hadn't spoken much all day. He'd gone through the motions at the photo shoot, smiled when the photographer asked, even joked briefly with Jeon. But now the room held the weight of everything that hadn't been said. Jimin paced in slow circles near the wall, eyes on the floor. TAEHYUNG sat slouched on the leather couch, hands clasped between his knees, a storm of unreadable emotion across his face. Namjoon was the one who broke the silence first. This isn't about media anymore. It's not about fans or brands or damage control. He looked at each of them slowly, deliberately. This is about us. And what we're going to be from here on. Yoongi sat with arms crossed, calm but alert. Jeon stood leaning against the wall, gaze fixed on the ground, as if bracing for impact. Hoseok sat with his head tilted slightly, listening like he was waiting for something to snap. TAEHYUNG finally looked up. If this is the part where I'm asked to choose between Jimin and the group, don't bother. I won't do it. Jungkook didn't turn around. You already did. The words landed like a brick through glass. TAEHYUNG flinched, but he didn't deny it. Namjoon pressed on. No one's asking you to choose love over loyalty. But something needs to change. Because whether you want to admit it or not, we're not just 7 people in a friendship crisis. We're a global symbol, and if we collapse now, we'll take millions with us. Jimin stopped pacing. So what's the solution, Hyung? We fake harmony again? Pretend none of this happened? Smile on camera while we bleed backstage. Yoongi's voice cut through. No, but we stop lying to ourselves. That's what's killing us. Not the relationship. Not the betrayal. It's the silence afterward. The fact that none of us have been honest with what we need to survive this. Jungkook finally turned. You want honesty? He walked toward the center of the room, his voice cold but clear. Then here it is. I don't trust either of you. Jimin looked up stunned. Jungkook. You ask if we can move on, but you're still holding hands when you think no one's looking. You talk about guilt, but I see you laugh together and wonder if you're mourning what we lost or just relieved it's finally out. He turned to TAEHYUNG. And you told me once you'd never leave me behind. Do you even remember saying that? TAEHYUNG's mouth opened, but no sound came. I remember everything, Jungkook whispered. That's my curse. Every glance. Every lie. Every goddamn time I had to pretend I didn't notice you slipping away. The room held its breath. Jimin stepped forward, voice shaking. Then say what you want. What do you want from me? From us? I want it to not hurt, Jungkook said. But it does. So unless you can undo time, I don't think you can give me anything I want. Then what are we doing here? Jimin snapped. Why are we still trying? Because I don't want to hate you, Jungkook said. I don't want to hate you. But I don't know how to love you without breaking myself. TAEHYUNG stood now, his voice loud for the first time. Then let's stop. Stop performing this version of us that died months ago. If we're just going to keep digging up the same wounds, what's the point? Don't you dare act like I'm the one keeping the wound open, Jungkook snarled. You were the one who started this fire and left me in it. Do you think I haven't suffered? TAEHYUNG yelled. You think watching you look at me like I killed something inside you doesn't haunt me every damn night? Then why did you do it? Because I could not love him. The room went dead silent. Jimin looked between the two of them, eyes wide, vulnerable. I never wanted this to be a war. It already is, Jungkook said. You just refuse to see the battlefield. They all stood there for a long moment, the ghosts of their own words hovering between them like smoke. Then Hoseok stood slowly. I think we need space. From each other. Temporarily. Namjoon didn't argue. Agreed. No tours. No shoots. A month off. Minimum. Everyone scatters. Do what you need to do. Figure out who you are without this pressure cooker. TAEHYUNG said nothing. He walked toward the door. Before leaving, he looked back at Jungkook. His expression was unreadable. I hope someday you see the whole picture, he said. Not just the frame you were standing in. Jungkook didn't respond. Within 24 hours, the company issued a statement. All group activities for BTS will be paused for an indefinite period. The members will be taking individual time for rest and reflection. We ask fans for understanding and continued support. And just like that, the machine stopped. Jungkook disappeared into a private villa near Jeju Island. Alone. No staff, no phones. Just a suitcase, notebooks, and time. The kind of time that usually came only after endings. He stopped shaving. Stopped checking his messages. Started running every morning until his lungs burned. He slept without music for the first time in years and wrote pages and pages of thoughts he never intended to show anyone. Letters. Half songs. Rage. Confessions. Most of them began with, I loved you. Still do. Back in Seoul, Jimin returned to his family's home. His mother said little but hugged him longer than usual. He cooked dinner. Took long walks without security. And every time someone recognized him and asked if he was okay, he said, I will be. But he wasn't sure yet if it was true. TAEHYUNG left the country. Flew to Florence under an alias. He walked the streets for hours, disappearing into museums, churches, candlelit cafes where no one knew who he was. He drank too much red wine and sketched faceless portraits in a leather-bound book. One night, drunk and alone in his apartment, he called Jungkook. The call rang. Once. Twice. And was declined. No voicemail. Just silence. A week passed. Then 2. And then, unexpectedly, Jungkook sent a message. It was a photo. A single white feather on the sand at dawn. No caption. But it said enough. Jimin saw the post on his private account and cried without knowing why. TAEHYUNG saw it too. He didn't cry. But he smiled for the first time in days. One by one, they began reaching out. First Jean, texting Jungkook, are you eating? Then Yoongi, asking Jimin, do you want to work on something? Not for release. Just for us. Then Hoseok, calling TAEHYUNG and saying nothing at all. Just breathing together on the line for 5 minutes. By the end of the 3rd week, they started talking again. Not about the band. Not about the scandal. About life. Weather. Dreams. Regrets. And then, finally, Jungkook texted Jimin. I don't forgive you yet. But I don't want to forget you either. Jimin replied a minute later. Then let's start somewhere in between. Let's remember. And try again. It wasn't healing. Not yet. But it was the first heartbeat. And that was how resurrection always began. Not with a bang. But with breath. The return wasn't announced. There was no headline, no tweet, no formal rollout from the company's PR. They didn't dress it up with the usual hype. No comeback, no dramatic countdown. Just one quiet morning in late autumn, the practice room lights turned on again. Taehyung walked in first. Black hoodie, black cap, black mask. No camera crew, no manager. Just him and his silence. Then Jimin came. 10 minutes later. His footsteps slowed when he saw Taehyung already inside, stretching in front of the mirror. Taehyung didn't turn. Didn't say anything. And neither did Jimin. Not at first. He dropped his bag by the wall and joined him in the mirror, matching his stretches without a word. After a long moment, Taehyung said, "You look tired." Jimin exhaled softly. "I didn't sleep well. You used to fall asleep the second we sat down. I haven't been sitting down lately." Their eyes met in the mirror, two versions of themselves that had once meant everything, now staring back like strangers in borrowed skins. "Did you think we'd get here?" Taehyung asked. "I wasn't sure we should." "Me neither." Outside the practice room, the hallway was quiet. Until a soft knock interrupted it. The door opened. Jungkook stood there. His hair was longer, curled at the ends. His face thinner, as if time had hollowed it gently. He didn't speak. Neither did they. Until Jimin stepped forward. "You came." "I said I would." A heavy pause. "Are we going to pretend everything's fine?" Jungkook asked. "No," Jimin replied. "We're going to admit it's not." Jungkook looked past him to Taehyung. "Are you still in love with him?" Taehyung didn't blink. "Yes." Jungkook nodded once. "Then don't lie about it anymore." "I won't." "And don't ask me to celebrate it." "I'm not." Jungkook turned back to Jimin. "And you?" Jimin swallowed. "I don't know what I feel. Only that I can't carry it alone anymore." Jungkook stepped fully into the room now. "Then don't." Silence again. But this one didn't burn. It settled. Jungkook set down his bag, rolled up his sleeves, and stood in the center of the floor. "Let's dance," he said. Taehyung blinked. "Now, we're not going to solve this talking in circles. Let's see what still works." They danced for hours. With no cameras, no counts. Just music. Old songs. New ones. Solos. Group tracks. Even unreleased demos that hadn't seen daylight. And somewhere in the middle of a particularly raw version of Spring Day, Jungkook broke. His body stopped moving, chest heaving. Jimin rushed to him, reaching out, but Jungkook stepped back. "I don't want to be touched when I'm like this." Jimin nodded and stayed a step away. "Okay." Jungkook collapsed to the floor, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. "I keep seeing it. You. Him. That night. Like it's burned into the back of my brain. Every time I look at either of you, I see it again. It doesn't go away." "I know," Jimin said. "I don't know how to erase it." "You're not supposed to," Taehyung said quietly. Jungkook looked up, eyes rimmed red. "Then how do I survive it?" Taehyung walked forward, sat on the floor beside him. "You remember that we didn't do it to hurt you." Jungkook stared at him. "But you did hurt me." "Yes," Taehyung admitted. "And I'll carry that guilt for the rest of my life. But I didn't love Jimin despite you. I loved him because something in me knew I was whole when I did. You were never less important. You were never invisible. But I couldn't deny what I felt, even when I wished I could." Jimin sat beside them both. "I thought I had to choose between hurting you or betraying myself. I chose wrong. I should have trusted you more. I should have spoken sooner." Jungkook wiped his face. "I don't want to live in this heartbreak forever." "Then we don't," Jimin said. "We rebuild." "I don't know what that looks like." Taehyung reached out, this time not to touch, but to offer a hand that didn't force anything. "We figure it out. Slowly. Together." Jungkook didn't take the hand. But he didn't walk away either. That night, Namjoon gathered all 7 at the dorm again. No agenda. No script. Just a room of old friends trying to remember how to be more than broken pieces. Yoongijungkook. Jeon told a joke that wasn't funny but made everyone laugh anyway. Hoseok queued up a playlist of songs they used to dance to at 3 a.m. during trainee days. And then, after dinner, Jungkook said quietly, "I wrote something." While I was away. Everyone turned to him. "It's not a song," he said. "It's more like a letter I'll never send. But I want to read it. Just once. Out loud." He pulled a crumpled paper from his hoodie pocket, unfolded it slowly, and began. to the version of us that never happened. I see you. In the quiet. In the spaces between rehearsal and performance. In the way your eyes held mine when you thought I wasn't looking. I see the love we never named. The touches we never let linger. The nights we never talked about the things that kept us up. You chose each other. And maybe that was always meant to be. But part of me will always wonder what would have happened if one of us had spoken first. I forgive you. But more than that, I forgive me. For hoping. For breaking. For surviving. No one spoke when he finished. Jimin wiped his eyes. Taehyung looked like he wanted to say 100 things but couldn't find the language. And Yoongi, the ever-quiet one, finally whispered, "That's the real comeback. Right there. Not a song. Not a performance. But the willingness to feel. To risk. To stay." And somehow, in that room full of unhealed wounds and half-spoken regrets, something began again. Not a restart. Not a redo. But something true. Later that night, as Jungkook stood on the balcony alone, Jimin came beside him. "Can I ask you something?" Jimin said. Jungkook nodded. "If you could go back, to the night before it all happened. When everything was still unspoken. Would you tell me how you felt?" Jungkook didn't hesitate. "No." Jimin blinked. "No?" "I would have held it. Just like I did. Because now, I know love can survive in silence too." They stood in quiet. Jimin smiled, broken and beautiful. "Thank you. I'm still healing," Jungkook said. "I know. But I'm here. I know." And that was enough. For now. For what came next. For whatever remained of what once was 7 boys and a dream, now men, scarred and still standing. Still loving. Still trying. It was their first performance in months. A small venue. No backup dancers. No laser lights. Just a stage, a few spotlights, and rows of velvet seats filled with industry insiders, family members, and the fans who never left, even when the world tried to tear them apart. They had rehearsed every day for 2 weeks. Not because the choreography was hard, but because moving in sync again required more than muscle memory. It required trust. And trust had been broken. Fractured in places so deep that no apology, no press release, no staged interview could fix it. Only time. Only showing up. Taehyung stood in front of the mirror backstage, buttoning his shirt with slow, deliberate fingers. Jimin sat in the corner, earbuds in, head bowed, whispering the lyrics under his breath as if praying them into existence. Jungkook leaned against the wall, staring at his reflection without really looking. "You good?" Namjoon asked him. Jungkook didn't move. "I'm here." Yoongi appeared behind him, eyes already rimmed with exhaustion, but sharp as ever. "That's all that matters tonight." The rest of the group filtered into the dressing room. Jean brought in snacks no one touched. Hoseok handed out water bottles. Their manager stood by the door, giving them space. No one said what they were all thinking. This is either the rebirth or the final breath. They took their places backstage. The lights dimmed. The opening notes of a new song began, one they hadn't released yet. One written across too many late nights and rewritten a dozen times until it no longer felt like a confession, but a reckoning. The title, Nothing Left to Hide. When Jungkook sang the first line, his voice wasn't perfect. It cracked. But it was real. And the room felt it. Jimin entered next, harmonizing not just with voice, but with something deeper, an ache that wrapped itself around every syllable. Then Taehyung, his tone darker, lower, trembling under control. The crowd didn't scream. They listened. Because this wasn't a concert. It was a wound being opened. A sacred ritual. Halfway through the second verse, Taehyung walked across the stage, toward Jungkook. Their eyes locked. Neither looked away. Then Jungkook stepped forward, just slightly, and sang the next line straight to him. "You were never the villain. You just stopped being mine." Gasps rose from the audience, quiet and collective. Jimin turned, facing both of them. His voice came in, shaky but clear. "And I didn't choose him over you. I chose not to lose myself." There was no choreography. Just stillness. Just truth. When the song ended, The room didn't erupt in applause. They stood in silence. Then, only then, someone began to clap. Then another. And then all of them until the room thundered with something bigger than approval. It was relief. Acceptance. Forgiveness. Not just for them. For everyone who'd ever been broken and didn't know how to keep loving after. Backstage after the show, the energy shifted. They didn't celebrate. Not in the loud, chaotic way they used to. They sat on the floor in a circle. Sweat-drenched, breathless, but whole. Jean finally broke the silence. I didn't think we'd make it back here. Namjoon nodded. Neither did I. Hoseok smiled soft. But it feels different now. Better, maybe. Jungkook looked at Jimin. Did you mean what you sang? Jimin met his gaze. Every word. And you? He asked TAEHYUNG. TAEHYUNG nodded. I don't want to lie anymore. Not to you. Not to myself. Jungkook leaned back on his hands. Then let's not pretend this healed everything. But let's also not pretend we're still broken the same way. Jimin whispered, we're not. And he was right. Later that night, in the quiet of the dorm, they sat together in the kitchen. Jimin and TAEHYUNG cooked ramen, laughing over burned garlic. Jungkook joined them halfway through, tossing green onions into the pan without a word. Yoongi brought soju. Jean passed out chopsticks. Namjoon raised a glass. To what comes next. They clinked, low and quiet. Jungkook looked at them all, 6 other men he had bled with, grown up with, fought with, forgiven. He looked at TAEHYUNG and saw not the boy who broke his heart, but the man who had chosen truth over comfort. He looked at Jimin and saw not betrayal, but bravery flawed, complicated bravery. And when Jimin met his eyes, something passed between them. Not romance. Not nostalgia. But respect. And something deeper than either. After midnight, Jungkook stepped outside onto the balcony. The sky was clear. Cold wind cutting over the city. TAEHYUNG joined him. They stood in silence. Then Jungkook said, I'm not over it. But I don't want to be angry anymore. TAEHYUNG nodded. I never stopped missing you. I missed us, Jungkook said. But not the illusion. The real us. Even when it was messy. TAEHYUNG smiled. Especially when it was messy. And then Jimin appeared, joining them. His arms crossed, hoodie pulled tight. No cameras, he said. Just memory, Jungkook answered. And in that moment, 3 of them stood under the stars, no stage, no spotlight, just the quiet hum of forgiveness and the echo of all they had survived. They didn't speak more that night. They didn't have to. Because sometimes, the loudest kind of healing is the silence shared between people who never stopped hoping it wasn't the end. And when morning came, the world would ask questions again. The industry would speculate. The rumors would reignite. But none of that mattered now. Because the truth had been told. The worst had come. And they were still here. Changed. Bruised. But here. Still 7. Still breathing. And above all, still theirs.